The space around Earth's solar system rippled like water as 200 massive ships dropped out of hyperspace. Each vessel stretched over a mile long, their hulls made of what looked like purple crystal that caught and reflected the distant light of stars. They moved in perfect formation, like a school of deadly fish swimming through the black ocean of space. Admiral Zixathera stood on the bridge of the largest ship, the Eternal Supremacy. Her forearms moved gracefully as she studied the holographic displays floating in front of her. The Cathar had conquered 47 star systems in the past century. Each time had been the same. They arrived, the local species saw their overwhelming force, and surrender followed within hours. "Admiral, we are detecting a single vessel approaching from the inner system," reported her tactical officer, his voice carrying the musical tones typical of their species. "It appears to be primitive." Zixathera's large, multifaceted eyes focused on the display. The human ship looked nothing like the sleek vessels of the Cathar fleet. Where their ships flowed like living creatures, this thing looked like someone had welded metal boxes together. Gray armor plates covered its hull in overlapping layers. Thick supports and external pipes ran along its sides. Chemical rocket engines glowed orange at its rear. "This is what the humans send to face us?" Zixathera asked, her voice filled with amusement. "A single ship that looks like it was built in a scrapyard?" The bridge crew laughed, their musical voices creating a harmony of mockery. The tactical officer brought up detailed scans of the approaching vessel. "Admiral, our sensors show the hull is made of simple iron and steel alloys. They appear to use chemical explosives for weapons and basic rocket fuel for propulsion. The construction methods are crude." Zixathera examined the readings more closely. The human ship, which their computers identified as the UES Defiance, was held together with millions of metal bolts and welds. Thick armor plates were layered like scales on a fish, each one secured with massive rivets. External weapon turrets jutted out at odd angles. Antenna arrays and sensor equipment created a forest of metal spikes across its surface. "Look at this construction," she said, pointing to a section where the humans had clearly cut holes in the hull and then welded new sections in place. "They build their ships like we might repair a damaged cargo hauler. No elegance, no efficiency, just crude metal pounded into shape." Her engineering officer, a younger Cathar with bright blue markings on his carapace, studied the scans with professional interest. "Admiral, they appear to have multiple redundant systems for everything. 3 separate power cores, 6 different communication arrays, and armor that is unnecessarily thick, wasteful," Zixathera declared. "They haven't learned that true strength comes from perfection, not from piling on more crude materials." The Cathar ships continued their approach, their crystalline hulls shimmering with the energy of their quantum-enhanced armor. Each vessel was a work of art, designed by the finest minds of their species. Their hulls could shift and adapt to different threats. Their weapons drew power directly from hyperspace. Their engines bent the laws of physics to move faster than light itself. "Open a communication channel to the human vessel," Zixathera ordered. "Let us see if these primitives can be made to see reason." The main display showed the bridge of the human ship. A woman sat in the captain's chair, wearing a simple blue uniform. Her hair was pulled back in a practical style, and her eyes were the color of Earth's oceans. Behind her, the human bridge looked as crude as their ship's exterior. Metal walls, physical switches and buttons, and displays that showed simple graphics instead of elegant holograms. "Primitive vessel, this is Admiral Zixathera of the Cathar Dominion," she began, her words automatically translated into the crude human language. "You stand before the might of 200 warships. Your single vessel appears to be held together with what your species might call spit and prayers. Surrender now, and your deaths will be swift." The human captain looked directly at the display, her expression calm. Behind her, other humans worked at their stations, their movements efficient but lacking the graceful beauty of Cathar crew members. "I am Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earthship Defiance," the woman replied. "You are in violation of human space. Turn your fleet around and leave, or we will be forced to defend our territory." Laughter filled the Cathar bridge. The communications officer enhanced the transmission so the entire fleet could hear the exchange. 200 ships' worth of crews joined in the amusement. "Captain Chen," Zixathera said, still smiling, "perhaps your sensors are malfunctioning. We show 200 warships against your single vessel. Each of our ships could destroy a dozen vessels of your design." "Our sensors work just fine," Captain Chen replied. "We can see your ships clearly." "Very pretty. They look like they belong in a museum. This comment caused another wave of laughter from the Kethar fleet. Zixthera gestured to her tactical officer. Show her what she faces. The display changed to show the full Kethar formation. 200 crystalline ships arranged in perfect geometric patterns, their hulls glowing with contained energy. Weapons that could tear apart planets charged with barely restrained power. Shields that could deflect the radiation of stars shimmered around each vessel. These are not museum pieces, Captain, Zixthera said. These are the pinnacle of military engineering. Each ship represents 10,000 years of advancement. Your vessel looks like something my ancestors might have built when they first learned to work metal. Captain Chen studied the display for a long moment. Impressive, she said finally. Very advanced. Very efficient. Very delicate. Delicate? Zixthera's crest flared with indignation. Our ships are perfected instruments of war. If you say so, Captain Chen replied. But I noticed something interesting about your formation. Every ship looks exactly the same. Same design, same weapon, same everything. Very efficient, like you said. Unity of design creates unity of purpose, Zixthera stated proudly. Unlike your crude vessel with its mismatched components and jury-rigged repairs. Captain Chen smiled slightly. You know what we call a design that can't be modified or repaired in the field? We call it a weakness. The Kethar Admiral's forearms gestured dismissively. Your ship appears to have been repaired so many times that no original components remain. This is not strength. This is the work of primitives who cannot build properly the first time. Maybe, Captain Chen agreed. Or maybe it's the work of people who know that anything worth building is worth building to last. And worth building so it can be fixed when it breaks. Zixthera had heard enough. The human captain's calm confidence was beginning to irritate her. No primitive species should show such lack of proper fear when facing the might of the Dominion. Captain Chen, you have one final opportunity to surrender. Your ship is outnumbered 200 to 1. Your technology is centuries behind ours. Your vessel looks like it was assembled by blind children using random scrap metal. Save your crew the futility of hopeless battle. Captain Chen leaned back in her chair. Admiral, I appreciate the offer. Really, I do. But there's something you should know about humans before you make any assumptions about this fight. And what is that? Zixthera asked, her patience wearing thin. We've been building things to survive on Earth for a very long time, and Earth is not a gentle place. The communication ended, leaving the Kethar bridge in silence. Admiral Zixthera stared at the blank display where Captain Chen's image had been moments before. The human had cut the transmission, something no species had ever dared to do when facing the Kethar Dominion. Around the bridge, her officers exchanged glances of disbelief. Did that primitive just hang up on us? Asked the communications officer, his musical voice hitting a note of confusion. It would appear so, Zixthera replied, her crest flaring with colors that indicated both anger and amusement. Perhaps we should educate them about proper respect for their betters. She turned to her tactical officer. Continue scanning their vessel. I want to know everything about this crude construction. When we destroy it, I want the records to show exactly how primitive these humans truly are. The scans revealed more details about the UES Defiance. The ship was even more roughly built than they had first thought. Thick metal plates were welded on top of other thick metal plates. Internal bulkheads appeared to be designed to contain explosions rather than prevent them. The weapon systems looked like they belonged in a museum of ancient warfare. Admiral, the engineering officer reported, their primary weapons appear to be kinetic projectile launchers. They literally throw pieces of metal at their enemies. Laughter rippled across the bridge again. Kinetic weapons? Zixthera asked. What's next? Are they going to ram us with their ship? According to these readings, that might actually be their backup plan, the tactical officer said, studying his displays. Their hull is reinforced far beyond what should be necessary. It's like they expect to crash into things regularly. Zixthera activated the fleet-wide communication system. All ships, this is Admiral Zixthera. You are witnessing something remarkable today. The humans have sent a single vessel to face our entire fleet. This ship appears to have been built by creatures who have never heard of efficient engineering. Across the 200 ships of the Kethar fleet, crews gathered around displays to examine the human vessel. Comments flowed across the communication channels, each more mocking than the last. Look at those external weapon mounts, came a voice from the Swift Retribution. They're not even integrated into the hull design. Those aren't weapon mounts, Another voice replied from the stellar conquest. Those are just metal boxes bolted to the outside of the ship. Check the armor configuration, added a crew member from the Infinite Victory. It looks like they just kept adding more layers whenever the old ones got damaged. Zixthera listened to the commentary with growing amusement. What you are seeing, my fellow warriors, is what happens when a species never learns to build properly. Instead of creating elegant, efficient designs, they simply pile on more crude materials. She gestured to her science officer. Display the comparative analysis. A hologram appeared showing a Cathar cruiser next to the human ship. The contrast was striking. The alien vessel flowed like liquid crystal. Every curve and angle serving both function and beauty. Energy conduits ran through the hull in perfect spirals. The crystalline armor could shift and adapt to different types of attacks. The human ship looked like a flying brick by comparison. Rectangular sections bolted together with no regard for aesthetics. Thick, ugly welds holding everything in place. External pipes and cables running along the hull because the builders apparently couldn't figure out how to run them inside. Observe the differences, Zixthera announced to the fleet. Our ships are works of art that happen to be devastating weapons of war. Their ship is a collection of scrap metal that someone hoped might float in space. From the bridge of the eternal supremacy, they watched as the human vessel continued its approach. It moved with the grace of a flying mountain, its chemical engines leaving trails of primitive exhaust. No elegant manipulation of space-time. No quantum tunneling drives. Just crude rockets pushing a crude ship through space. Admiral, the communications officer said, we're receiving multiple transmission attempts from the human vessel. They appear to be trying to re-establish contact. Let them wait, Zixthera replied. Perhaps a few minutes of silence will help them understand their situation. She turned back to studying the tactical displays. The human ship was heavily armed for such a primitive design, but the weapons were laughably obsolete. Kinetic cannons that fired solid projectiles, chemical explosive warheads, point defense systems that used actual bullets instead of energy beams. It's almost sad, she mused aloud. They've armed their ship with weapons that were obsolete when my great-grandmother was hatched. Should we prepare to accept their surrender? Asked the tactical officer. Eventually, Zixthera said. But first, let's make sure they understand exactly what they're facing. She opened the communication channel again. Captain Chen's image appeared on the display, her expression unchanged from their previous conversation. Captain Chen, Zixthera began, I hope you used that time to reconsider your position. Actually, I used it to get a better look at your ships, Captain Chen replied. Very impressive. Your hulls appear to be grown rather than built. Organic crystal matrix with quantum-enhanced properties. Very advanced. Zixthera was surprised by the human's accurate assessment. You recognize advanced engineering when you see it? My engineering team does, Captain Chen said. They also pointed out something interesting. Your ships are probably incredibly efficient. Maximum firepower with minimum mass. Elegant weapon integration. Adaptive armor systems. Finally, some recognition of superiority, Zixthera said, pleased. Oh, there's more, Captain Chen continued. They also noted that your entire fleet uses the same basic design. Same hull configuration, same weapon types, same engine signatures. Very standardized. Standardization creates efficiency, Zixthera stated proudly. Unlike your vessel, which appears to be a collection of random components, Captain Chen smiled. That's one way to look at it. Another way is to say that every single one of your ships has exactly the same weaknesses. The comment struck Zixthera as odd. What do you mean? I mean that if something works against one of your ships, it will work against all of them, Captain Chen explained. Perfect standardization is perfect predictability. Zixthera's crest flared with irritation. And I suppose your crude mismatched systems are somehow superior? Let me put it this way, Captain Chen said. When we build a ship, we assume that everything will break eventually. So we build it so that when something breaks, the ship keeps working. When you build a ship, you assume that nothing will break because your engineering is perfect. Our engineering is perfect, Zixthera declared. That is why the Dominion has never lost a fleet engagement. That's impressive, Captain Chen acknowledged. But here's the thing about perfect systems. They work perfectly right up until they don't work at all. The human captain leaned forward slightly. Admiral, you're looking at my ship and seeing primitive construction. I'm looking at your ships and seeing 200 identical targets. Sixth Era had heard enough philosophy from primitives for one day. Captain Chen, you command a single vessel against 200. Your weapons are obsolete. Your armor is crude. Your engines are primitive. You cannot possibly believe you have any chance of victory. You're absolutely right about our technology. Captain Chen agreed. We're centuries behind you in most areas, but there's something you should understand about humans. And what is that? Captain Chen's expression grew serious. We didn't get to the stars by building perfect ships, Admiral. We got here by building ships that refuse to die. Admiral Zixthara decided that enough words had been exchanged. The humans had shown remarkable stubbornness for such a primitive species, but stubbornness would not deflect plasma cannons or quantum disruptors. All ships, assume attack formation, she commanded. The 200 vessels of the Cathar fleet moved like a school of crystal fish, each ship taking its precise position in the deadly pattern they had perfected over centuries of conquest. The formation was beautiful to watch. Ships arranged in geometric perfection, their movements coordinated by quantum-linked computers. Energy weapons began to charge, creating a light show across the fleet as power built up in crystalline focusing arrays. Captain Chen, Zixthara said, reopening the communication channel. This is your final opportunity to surrender. In 30 seconds, 10 of my ships will demonstrate why resistance is futile. On the display, Captain Chen sat calmly in her simple metal chair. Behind her, human crew members worked at their stations with quiet efficiency. No panic, no fear, just professional focus. I understand, Admiral, Captain Chen replied. But before you begin, I'd like to share something with you. Something about Earth. Zixthara was curious despite herself. Proceed. Earth is what we call a death world, Captain Chen began. The gravity is crushing. The atmosphere is corrosive. The weather tries to kill everything that moves. Earthquakes split the ground open. Volcanoes melt entire cities. Storms carry winds that can flatten buildings. The Admiral listened with growing confusion. Where was this leading? The oceans are full of creatures that can swallow ships whole, Captain Chen continued. The land has predators that hunt in packs and plants that are poisonous to touch. Diseases that can kill in hours. Radiation from space that burns through atmosphere. Your point, Captain? Zixthara asked impatiently. Captain Chen smiled. My point is that everything humans have ever built had to survive on Earth first. Every material we use, every design we create, every system we install, it all has to work in an environment that would kill most galactic species in minutes. She gestured to the walls around her. This ship wasn't built in the vacuum of space, Admiral. It was built on a world where hurricanes can throw trucks through buildings, where earthquakes can shake the ground apart, where lightning strikes with enough power to melt metal. Zixthara found herself actually listening. The human captain spoke with such calm confidence that it was almost unsettling. When we test our systems, we don't test them in perfect laboratory conditions, Captain Chen went on. We test them in places where the temperature can swing from boiling to freezing in hours, where the pressure can change enough to crush unprotected creatures, where electromagnetic storms can fry any electronics that aren't properly shielded. Enough of this, Zixthara declared. Attack Formation Alpha 7. Ships 1 through 10 demonstrate our superiority. 10 Cathar vessels broke from the main formation, their crystalline hulls glowing brighter as weapon systems reached full charge. They arranged themselves in a perfect firing pattern around the human ship, their movements precise and beautiful. All ships fire, Zixthara commanded. 10 plasma cannons fired simultaneously. Beams of pure energy, each capable of vaporizing a moon, converged on the UES Defiance. The space around the human ship lit up like a star as impossible amounts of energy struck its hull. The Cathar bridge crew watched their displays expectantly, waiting for the debris cloud that would mark the end of human resistance. Instead, they watched in stunned silence as the energy beam struck the human ship and simply disappeared. Report, Zixthara snapped. Energy dissipation at 97%. The tactical officer said, his voice filled with disbelief. Hull temperature rising, but within acceptable parameters for their construction materials. No structural damage detected. Impossible, Zixthara breathed. Nothing can absorb that much energy. Captain Chen's voice came across the communication channel, still calm and professional. That's the thing about building everything to survive on a death world, Admiral. You learn to handle extreme temperatures. The human ship continued its steady approach, apparently unaffected by the attack. Its hull glowed slightly from the heat, but the thick metal plates showed no signs of damage. Our armor isn't elegant like yours, Captain Chen explained. It's just layer after layer of the toughest materials we could find. Metals that can survive re-entry through our atmosphere while being hit by meteors. Alloys that we developed to build structures in places where the ground literally melts. Zixthera stared at her displays in growing alarm. All ships, concentrate fire on the human vessel. The order went out across the fleet. 200 Cathar warships turned their weapons toward the single human ship. The space around the Defiance became a storm of energy as every weapon in the alien fleet fired at once. Plasma beams, quantum disruptors, gravitational crushers, and exotic particle cannons all struck the human vessel simultaneously. The energy release was visible from several star systems away, a miniature sun burning in the darkness of space. When the light faded, the UES Defiance was still there. Its hull glowed white-hot, but it was intact and still moving forward. Hull temperature at maximum rated tolerance, Captain Chen reported, her voice maddeningly calm. All systems operational. No casualties reported. How? Zixthera whispered. Thermal distribution networks, Captain Chen explained. When you live on a world where the surface temperature can melt lead, you learn to spread heat around. Every plate of our armor is connected to every other plate through a web of thermal conduits. You're not hitting a single point, you're heating up our entire ship, and our entire ship was built to handle it. The Admiral looked at her tactical displays with new eyes. The human ship's crude, overlapping armor plates weren't just thick, they were interconnected. Heat from the weapon impacts was spreading across the entire hull, dissipating into space through thousands of cooling vanes and heat sinks. Your weapons are impressive, Captain Chen acknowledged, but they're designed to punch through elegant, efficient armor. Our armor isn't elegant. It's just really, really thick, and it shares everything. Zixthera felt something she had never experienced in battle before. Uncertainty. Continue firing, she ordered. Increase power to maximum. The Cathar fleet poured more energy into their weapons, pushing their systems to the limit. The bombardment continued for several minutes, turning the space around the human ship into a continuous inferno. But when the firing finally stopped, the Defiance was still there. Still intact, still moving forward. Thermal management systems holding steady, Captain Chen reported. Though I'll admit it's getting pretty warm in here. Our environmental systems are working overtime. She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice carried a new edge. Our turn now, Admiral. The UES Defiance continued its steady approach toward the Cathar fleet, its hull still glowing from the absorbed energy of 200 alien weapons. Admiral Zixthera stared at her displays, trying to understand how a primitive vessel could survive the concentrated firepower of the entire Dominion fleet. All ships maintain firing pattern, she commanded, though doubt was creeping into her voice. Continue bombardment until that ship is destroyed. The crystalline vessels poured more energy into their weapons, but the results were the same. The human ship absorbed the attacks like a metal sponge, its thick armor plates distributing the heat across its entire structure. Captain Chen's voice came across the communication channel again. Admiral, while you're trying to melt our ship, let me explain something about human engineering philosophy. I don't want to hear any more of your primitive theories, Zixthera snapped. Too bad, Captain Chen replied cheerfully. You see, you keep calling our construction crude and primitive, but there's a difference between crude and simple. And there's a big difference between simple and stupid. The human ship was now close enough that the Cathar sensors could pick up fine details of its construction. What they saw was disturbing. Every system appeared to have multiple backups. Every critical component was built with redundant alternatives. The ship looked like it had been designed by engineers who expected everything to break multiple times. Your ships are beautiful, Captain Chen continued. Perfect integration between systems. Maximum efficiency. Every component precisely calibrated to work with every other component. Very impressive. Mock us all you want, Zixthera said. Your ship still cannot harm us. Actually, it can, Captain Chen said calmly. But let me finish explaining the difference between our approaches first. You build ships like works of art. We build ships like tools. She gestured to something off-screen. When you design a perfect system, you create something beautiful and efficient, but you also create something fragile. If any part of your perfect system fails, the whole thing stops working. The human ship suddenly changed course, its movement surprisingly agile for such a massive vessel. The chemical rockets that the Kethar had mocked as primitive allowed for rapid direction changes that the more advanced alien propulsion systems couldn't match. When we design a system, Captain Chen went on, we assume that at least half of it will break in the first month. So we build everything with backups, and backups for the backups, and emergency systems that can replace the backups. Admiral, Zixthara was beginning to understand something disturbing. You're saying your ship is designed to be damaged? I'm saying our ship is designed to keep fighting even when it's been blown apart, Captain Chen corrected. Every human vessel is built to survive losing half its components and still complete its mission. To demonstrate her point, she activated her ship's weapon systems. The external gun turrets that the Kethar had dismissed as crude began to move. But instead of the expected chemical explosives, the weapons charged with a different kind of energy. Now about our weapons, Captain Chen said. You're right that we use kinetic projectiles. We literally throw chunks of metal at our enemies. Very primitive, as you said. The first human weapon fired. It wasn't the crude chemical cannon the aliens expected. Instead, a railgun launched a tungsten slug at a significant fraction of light speed. The projectile struck the shields of the nearest Kethar vessel and punched through them like they weren't there. The alien ship's crystalline hull, so perfect and elegant, cracked along stress lines that had never been designed to handle kinetic impacts. The vessel split apart in a shower of crystal fragments. The thing about energy weapons, Captain Chen explained as her ship's other weapons came online, is that they're designed to overwhelm energy defenses. Your shields are very good at stopping plasma and particle beams. Another railgun fired, then another. Each shot destroyed a Kethar vessel with terrifying efficiency. The alien ships built for energy warfare had no defense against solid projectiles moving at relativistic speeds. But kinetic weapons don't care about your energy shields, Captain Chen continued. They just punch right through them and keep going. Admiral Zixthara watched in horror as her perfect fleet began to die. All ships, evasive maneuvers. Randomize your movements. The Kethar vessels broke formation, their crystalline hulls catching the light as they tried to avoid the human ship's weapons. But the Defiance had more than just railguns. Point defense systems opened fire, filling space with thousands of small projectiles. The alien crews had never faced this type of weapon before. Their elegant ships, designed for the clean warfare of energy beams and exotic particles, were helpless against simple bullets fired at high velocity. The projectiles tore through crystalline hulls like glass, causing catastrophic decompression and system failures. You want to know the real difference between our approaches? Captain Chen asked, as her weapons systematically destroyed ship after ship. You design your vessels to be perfect. We design ours to be mean. A group of Kethar ships tried to coordinate a flanking attack, but the human vessel's point defense systems tracked every movement. Streams of projectiles reached out like deadly fingers, touching alien ships and watching them crumble. Every weapon on this ship was designed by a species that spent 10,000 years finding new ways to kill each other, Captain Chen said matter-of-factly. We didn't just invent war, we perfected it. The human ship's main guns fired again, each shot carefully aimed at critical points on the alien vessels. Unlike energy weapons that could be absorbed or deflected, these kinetic rounds struck with the force of meteors. Ships that had conquered dozens of star systems died in seconds. Your shields are designed to stop energy, Captain Chen observed. Your hulls are designed to be light and efficient. Your ships are built to fight other ships exactly like them. She paused as another volley destroyed 5 more Kethar vessels. But you've never fought anyone who builds things to survive in hell. Admiral Zixthara realized with growing terror that her perfect fleet was being systematically dismantled by weapons that belonged in a museum. All ships, focus fire on their weapon systems. But the human weapons were just as redundant as everything else on the ship. When alien fire destroyed one gun turret, 2 more popped up from hidden positions. When those were destroyed, missile launchers emerged from concealed bays. We don't just have backups for our critical systems, Captain Chen explained as her ship continued its deadly work. We have backups for our backups, And when those fail, we have backup systems that were designed to work with whatever's left. The Defiance waded through the alien formation like a battleship through a fleet of pleasure craft. Its thick armor absorbed everything the Cathar could throw at it, while its weapons reached out to touch ship after ship with deadly precision. "This is impossible," Zixthera screamed. "One ship cannot defeat 200. "You're right," Captain Chen agreed. "One of your ships couldn't. But then again, you've never built a ship that was designed to fight the entire universe and win." Admiral Zixthera watched her fleet die around her. In less than an hour, over half of the Cathar Dominion's most advanced warships had been reduced to drifting debris. The impossible human vessel continued its methodical destruction, moving through her formations like death incarnate. "Admiral, we must retreat," her tactical officer pleaded, his musical voice cracking with panic. "Our weapons cannot penetrate their defenses, but they destroy us with every shot." "No!" Zixthera snarled, her forearms gripping the command console. "The Dominion has never retreated. We cannot be defeated by a single primitive ship." But even as she spoke, another group of her vessels died under the human ship's guns. The Defiance had taken damage. Its hull was scarred and blackened from the constant bombardment, but it kept fighting. Systems that should have failed hours ago continued to operate. Weapons that should have been destroyed kept firing. Captain Chen's voice came across the communication channel, still maddeningly calm despite the battle raging around her ship. "Admiral, you're losing a lot of good ships here. Maybe it's time to reconsider your position." "Never," Zixthera screamed. "All remaining ships ramming speed. If our weapons cannot destroy them, we'll crush them with our hulls." It was a desperate move, the last resort of a commander who refused to accept defeat. 50 remaining Cathar vessels turned toward the human ship, their engines pushed to maximum power. Their crystalline hulls gleamed as they accelerated, preparing to sacrifice themselves to destroy the primitive vessel that had humiliated them. The human ship's point defense systems opened fire, streams of projectiles reaching out to intercept the charging vessels. But there were too many targets coming from too many directions. Some of the alien ships would get through. "Brace for impact," Captain Chen announced calmly to her crew. The first Cathar ship struck the Defiance amidships, its crystalline hull shattering like glass against the human vessel's thick armor. The impact rang through both ships like a massive bell, but when the debris cleared, the human ship was still intact. The elegant alien vessel, designed for maximum efficiency and minimum mass, had destroyed itself against armor designed to survive meteor impacts. More ships followed, each one shattering against the human hull like waves against a rocky shore. "Impossible," Zixthera whispered. "How can they survive direct impacts?" Captain Chen's voice provided the answer. "Collision armor, Admiral. When you build ships on a world where space debris regularly falls from the sky at 30 kilometers per second, you learn to build things that can take a hit. The human ship had suffered damage from the ramming attacks, but it was still operational. Entire sections of hull plating had been torn away, revealing the redundant armor layers beneath. Internal systems sparked and smoked, but backup systems immediately took over. You keep thinking in terms of elegant, efficient design, Captain Chen explained as her weapons continued to fire at the remaining alien vessels. But elegant systems break when you hit them hard enough. Crude systems just get angry. Admiral Zixthera looked around her bridge at the faces of her crew. Terror had replaced confidence. The Cathar had never faced an enemy that could simply absorb their best attacks and keep fighting. "All ships disengage," she finally ordered. "Retreat to hyperspace." But Captain Chen wasn't finished. "I'm afraid I can't let you do that, Admiral." The human ship's sensors had been tracking every vessel in the alien fleet. As the surviving Cathar ships tried to escape, targeted fire reached out to disable their engines. "Not destroy them, disable them. You came here to conquer human space," Captain Chen said, her voice taking on a harder edge. "You threatened to kill innocent people. You mocked our defenses and assumed we would surrender without a fight." One by one, the fleeing alien ships found their engines shot out from under them. They drifted helplessly in space, their crews trapped aboard vessels that could no longer maneuver. "Now you're going to take a message back to your Dominion," Captain Chen continued. "You're going to tell them exactly what happened here. You're going to explain how 200 advanced warships were defeated by a single human vessel. Admiral Zixthera's ship was one of the few still capable of movement. She stared at the tactical display showing the wreckage of her fleet scattered across several thousand cubic kilometers of space. "This is not possible," she said quietly. "Our ships are superior in every measurable way." "That's your problem right there," Captain Chen replied. "You're measuring the wrong things." The human captain's image appeared on the main display, her uniform torn and dirty from the battle, but her expression was calm and professional. "You measure efficiency and elegance and technological advancement," she said. "We measure how much damage something can take and keep working. You build ships to impress people. We build ships to survive." Captain Chen gestured to the battle damage visible behind her. "This ship has taken more punishment in the last 2 hours than most vessels see in their entire service life. Half our systems are running on backups, a third of our armor is gone, and we've got fires on 12 different decks." She smiled grimly. "And we're still fully operational." Admiral Zixthera realized with growing horror what this meant. If one human ship could do this to the Dominion's finest fleet, what could a full human battle group accomplish? "How many ships do humans have?" she asked quietly. "Enough," Captain Chen replied. "And Admiral? They're all built just like this one." The human captain leaned forward slightly. "Here's what's going to happen. I'm going to let some of your ships go. You're going to take them back to your Dominion and explain what you learned here today." "And what did we learn?" Zixthera asked bitterly. "You learned the difference between building something perfect and building something that refuses to die," Captain Chen said. "You learned that efficiency is worthless if it can't survive contact with reality. And you learned that humans didn't crawl up from a death world just to be conquered by prettier ships." The communication channel switched to a general broadcast that reached all surviving Kethar. "Vessels, this is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earthship Defiance, speaking to all ships of the Kethar Dominion. You came here believing that advanced technology and superior numbers would guarantee victory. You discovered that there are more important things than perfection." Her voice carried across the void to hundreds of alien ears. "Humanity claims this system under the right of successful defense. Any future incursions into human space will be met with the same response you witnessed today." She paused, letting her words sink in. "Take this message to your leaders. Earth is under human protection. And humans don't fight fair, we don't fight pretty, and we absolutely do not know when to quit." The surviving Kethar ships limped away from the system, their crews traumatized by the impossible defeat they had witnessed. Behind them, the UES Defiance continued its patrol, battered but unbroken. Admiral Zixthera's final transmission back to Dominion High Command was brief. "Mission failed. Human defenses more capable than anticipated. Recommend extreme caution in future operations." She did not mention that extreme caution might not be enough. She had seen what happened when perfection met stubbornness, and perfection had lost. In the depths of space, the human ship turned toward home, its scarred hull reflecting the light of distant stars. It had work to do and repairs to make, because somewhere in the galaxy other threats would eventually emerge, and when they did, humanity would be ready.